Hi guys, Samantha from Jessimo Tutorials here, and welcome back to another polymer clay video. So today I'm going to be taking another try with Dragon's Vein Agate. Now the last video that I put out was also me trying to make this stone, or effect with a stone, and I wasn't quite happy with it. These are the pieces that I made versus the pieces that I have. This one will work if you don't have a heat gun. I really did want to try the technique with a heat gun and actually crackling a agate imitation, but I know that for some of you don't have access to a heat gun, and so I did want to create a method that didn't rely on that, but the results are going to be limited. So this was the last tutorial. Just wanted to give you a refresh on what we're trying to make is. And today I'm just going to say we're using a heat gun and we're going to be creating a crackle. So the agate effect is going to be more important this time around, and so I've got some coloured translucent here, and I coloured it specifically with alcohol inks, and here are the inks that I used. So there you can see those. And now I didn't mix these through, so we've got kind of a mottled effect, which is the advantage to creating your own coloured translucent, but you can buy coloured translucent as well. Then I've just got regular translucent, and I have white, and this is all Primo. And I don't want quite as much white as this, I'm actually going to halve it. And have about the same amount of translucent to white, and basically all the colours should be around about equal. And it doesn't matter how much you're using, it really depends on how much you want to make. There's no real exact measurements with this, you don't have to worry about that. I'm just going to pop them on top of each other. Again, you do not need to worry about being exact with this. Okay, this will just make it easier to chop up. And I'm just going to cut it into strips, like so. And again, because we're making a agate imitation here, you can use any colours that you want. I'm going with the green and brown effect because it's been a while since I've used that colour combination, but you can use any colour combination that you want. And I'm not going to have them stacked perfectly. Like here you can see I've doubled up on the green, and I'll just continue propping them together. Okay, there we go. Then I'm just going to press those sides before I marble it, just so that we don't have any pieces hanging off. I'll just press that together. And you can be more deliberate with your agate effect. We're going with a nice easy one through a marble, but I have I believe I've shown how to create a agate geode before. If I haven't put it in the links below, let me know in the comments and I'll pop it there. But I have created more purposeful agate in the past where you really focus on the banding. This one I'm not going to worry about that too much, because you can get quite a convincing effect by just marbling with white and translucent. But if you want to be more deliberate with it, then by all means go ahead. And I'm just twisting it like so, and just continue doing that, rolling and twisting until you think that it's got a fine enough banding. And I'm quite happy with that. I'm not actually going to need to do much more. Just spend some time on the ends, because those will always be the parts where you have the thicker stripes. And press down like so. And this will just bump everything up together. You can see how that looks on the other side. I'm trying not to get it to overlap with itself too much, but there we go, you can see how that makes quite a nice effect. Then just give it a roll. And the white really adds some nice contrast. And now when you're rolling this out, just keep in mind that this is going to be how thick your piece is, because we're not going to be putting any other layers on top of this. So don't roll it out too thin. Okay, and there we go, that's quite nice. Last step is just going to be to do kind of what I did last time, where you use your finger to just press these layers around so that you have a little bit more wiggly lines, I guess is the best word I can come up with at the moment. But you just don't want the lines to look too straight, which when you finish with this it can look a little bit too much like that. So just pressing down on the clay, pulling down or up will help you out with that. Okay. Then you're going to have a bunch of fingerprints and divots. Just use a piece of paper to really burnish that down and get it nice and smooth again. Okay, and I've burnished it between two pieces of paper, and I also made sure to do both sides. So choose the side that you like the best, and I personally like this side better, and so I will just burnish that back on the piece of paper. Now because we are going to be crackling this, you want to use as little clay as possible, so choose the cutter that you're going to be using, and I'll just bring that over. I'm going to be using this nice rounded square donut, and I'm going to choose a spot that I like, and I really like these edge pieces. You can see that it adds a bit of variety rather than cutting right in the middle here. If you cut over here, it's going to just, as I said, add variety. So I'm going to leave that there, not cut right now, but I am going to trim away the extra clay, and you can use that still, but because we're going to be crackling it, it's very hard to use it as leftovers as well, so I will trim around the edges and try to get rid of as much extra clay as I can, while still allowing me plenty of space to work. Now I'm going to burnish it down one more time and make sure that it's completely flat, because once you've semi-cured it, you can't get rid of that without sanding. There we go, got it as smooth as I can. Then I'm going to bring over a heat gun, and I will have it on the hottest setting, and this is the type that I'm using. And I'm just going to, hopefully you can see that it's got a bit of a sheen to it. When it's raw and has not been baked in any way whatsoever, the clay will have a sheen to it, but if you heat it, you should find that the surface goes matte. So that's what you're looking for. Okay, and that should be it. You don't need to do it for very long. To test, run your finger over the surface and it should not stick at all. And let me shine that around. Hopefully you can see that it's completely matte. Oops. I flip it to the other side, you can see that there is a slight sheen to that. Hopefully the camera is able to pick that up. Okay. Then you need to let that cool before we move on to the next step. Okay. And that's cool enough. Now I'm going to do this with my roller first, see if I can get it to crackle that way. You might need to do it by hand first, and it's not crackling that way, so I'm gonna do it by hand. And you can see there how it's cracking, and just go gently and try to get square cracks, so you want to crack it from both directions. And you're just going to continue across the whole surface, and then we will go over it with our roller. Okay, and there we go. Okay, put that down onto the piece of paper and just roll like twice with your, that was way more than twice, just roll a few times with your roller, don't press too hard. And I'm just going to burnish that down onto the surface. So, and that should stick it all together, but you want the cracks to still be nice and open. Okay. And you can see that this is going to fit quite nicely. Okay. And I'm going to flip it over, and I always cut from the back when I'm doing a crackle, because if you cut from the front, because there's raw clay on the back, the cured bits bend down and you end up with a really messy sides, and so I prefer to cut from the back. Now it might stick in the cutter actually, come to think of it, because this is cured, so I'll bring over some cling wrap to help it not stick. Okay, there we go. I'll pop the plastic wrap down, and now I'm just going to cut. And it's going to be it's going to take a bit of pressure to cut through, because you're cutting through cured clay essentially. So make sure that you press down. And the trick that you can have if you're having a little bit of trouble getting enough pressure down is to actually use your roller and press down like so. And that will help. And we should be golden. Lift that up carefully, and because you've got plastic wrap on, it's not going to take fingerprints if you press down on it through the cutter. Remove the plastic wrap, and your edges are still going to have a little bit of mess to them, but that can be easily cleaned up with sanding. There we go. Over so it's less messy, and I'm just going to clean up around the edges, but in general if you cut it with the crackle side facing down, you'll get much cleaner edges and your surface will be nice and flat. You won't have any issues with it curling. And yes, that is the neatest way I've found to cut crackle. And we got this little piece here as well, and I might keep that, I might not. If I don't, then you won't see it later, but I'm going to put that into the oven for a full hour at Primrose recommend temperature, and then only once it's baked will we create the cracks, because if you do that right now you risk distorting the piece. Okay, and before we put that into the oven, I actually want to make a bead to go with it. So I'm going to take the clay that we have left that was not crackled, and I'm just going to trim off a piece with the lines so that we get plenty of those agate looking lines. And then I'm going to just carefully curl it in on itself. I don't want it to crack. It might, but if I can help it, I will do my best. Okay, just join those pieces together, and then squish on the top to bring those top bits in, so that we extend the lines, and do that on both sides. Like so. And this way we can create ourselves a little bead. And it's not really going to look perfectly agatey because we'll have distorted those lines quite a bit, but it will match nicely with our donut and be a nice little top bead. I decided that would be better than that, than this piece. But yeah, just continue pressing on that top bit, and that will mean that you have mostly lines. Roll in your hand to get it smoothed off a bit. Then put it down with those end pieces facing up. Put down a piece of paper and just use an acrylic block generally to squish it down. And this will create a nice little rondelle, and you can see the edges there look quite nice. And then cut out the hole. Try to get that in the middle if possible. Now just spin it around, that's the best way to see. Okay. Cut out the middle, And then you can use this to smooth off the sides as well, so that you don't have as many fingerprints, because these are difficult to sand. And then I'll go back through the other way as well, just so that it's a nice clean cut. And I'll bake that with our other piece. Okay, and here they are out of the oven. So this one I don't need to do anything with. Whoops. But this one we are going to fill in those cracks. Now you can just use paint, but we won't be able to get a nice smooth finish with that, and the paint doesn't fill it in as nicely as I would like it to. So we're going to be using clay. And I'm just going to be using plain white clay. The softer it is, the easier you'll have, the easier time you'll have. You just press it onto the surface and then press down and smudge it over like so, and this will work it into the cracks. And just do that across the entire piece. Here we go. Then I'm just going to use a blade to scrape off the surface. And we are going to sand this later on to get rid of the rest of it. But using a blade will get off just most of the surface bits, and it will just make the sanding process much quicker later on. There we go, and you can roughly see how that's going to look. Now I really do want a nice flat surface on this once we've sanded it, so I'm not going to be using a rag with alcohol to clean it like I have in some of my other videos. We are going to simply sand it off, and that way it will give us a much flatter finish. Just pop it in the oven for like about 15 to 20 minutes at Primo's recommended temperature, and then we can sand it. Okay, and here they are out of the oven. Now I've given it a good sand to remove all of that excess white. I've also sanded the back. This one I can't sand, but it's already quite smooth and we don't have any cracks on it, so we don't have to worry about it. But both of them I am going to buff. I'm just going to use some Renaissance wax. And that's not completely necessary, you don't have to seal it, it just means that the buff that you're going to get is a little bit shinier than if you just buffed it straight out. So I'll just take some of that and just rub it on the surface. You don't need a lot. Okay, I also put some wax on this and I will sand that in a bit. Buff it in a bit. But let's do this one. I'm using a Dremel 3000 with a cotton buffing wheel and just going to buff it. I'm not done, I just wanted to show you there how nicely that comes out. I'm going to buff both sides and the other bead that we have. Okay, and there we go, nice and shiny. So now I've just got two pieces of pearl white cord of equal length. I'm just going to pop those pieces together and we will use them to string our piece. Just pop it through the hole like so, and just arrange it so that it looks nice and tidy. Pull that tight over the corner. Just give me one moment, there you go. And then I'm going to put cord through this hole, and the hole should be big enough. Yes. and that will just be our topper. Separate out those cords, trim them down because they will come out a little uneven just due to the process of the knot that we made. And just pop a silver cord end. When you do this, just make sure you give it a nice squeeze. Make sure it's on there properly. You can actually give it a little tug to make sure that it's on. Open up a jump ring and attach part of your clasp, and then repeat that process on the other side. Okay, and there we go. And it came out looking quite nice. Now I did find two more pieces of the Dragon's Vein agate that I just wanted to show as example pieces. But yeah, I'm quite happy with this technique. I think it works a little better than the cane effect that I showed in the previous tutorial, but it's really up to you which one you want to go with. This doesn't require the heat gun obviously, and so it can be a little easier to do with limited supplies, but I do still personally prefer this one because you can get more of a pattern and the crackle will come out different each time round, and I just prefer it. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Which technique do you prefer? And did you enjoy the tutorial? I would love to hear, and I will answer any questions you have as soon as I can. And if you enjoyed the tutorial, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing. I do videos like this every single week, and I look forward to seeing you guys in each video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.